Hi everyone, my name is Hannah and I am here from the Wyoming branch. So for today I'm going to share a variety of graphic novels for both teens and adults. And once a month we do a different theme. For this month I am going to do monsters and creatures. Found it fitting for the spookiest month of the year. So all of these are going to have some kind of monster and creature element to them. Some are going to have more classic monsters that you think of, like Frankenstein kind of creatures, and then some are going to be more of a fantasy element. And then just a quick disclaimer, I'm going to bring up the teen graphic novels first, and then I am going to bring up the adult graphic novels second. So those are going to have a bit more mature content, but I will let you know before I go through those. They're both perfectly great books for either age, but just letting you know about that. And then the last thing I just want to bring up real quick is I will tell you which format that you can get these books in, and they will either be in physical format, physical and digital, which will be Hoopla format, or just on Hoopla. So I'll let you know about that as well. But let's get to it. The first one I want to share with you today is Through the Woods by Emily Carroll. This, I'd say, is a good spooky campfire stories kind of graphic novels with monsters and creatures in it. So this is a teen graphic novel book, super good one. If you've ever looked at Emily Carroll's works and illustrations before, you know she does absolutely gorgeous stuff. This one is no different. And this one is just available as a physical copy at the moment, but there are lots of copies in the system, so you should be able to get it easy peasy. My favorite thing about Emily Carroll's work is she both does coloring really well, and she also does a really good job with lack of color. Like here's a diary entry part here. So it's just a really pretty book. It has a nice collection of short stories in this, so none of them take too long to read through, so you can get your horror fix and your spooky fix all in one book. And if you notice any of these titles and you miss them, no worries. At the end of the program, I put the titles and the authors in the private chat, in the public chat after this is done. So you will be able to get the titles. So no rush about trying to write through those. The next one I'm going to go through, I have both a teen graphic novel of this and an adult graphic novel of this, just because I can't bring up October and not bring up Swamp Thing. Swamp Thing, if you haven't read stuff about him before, think superhero but with a very dark twist. If you like Hellboy, you'd probably like Swamp Thing. And he's one of the older superheroes as well. Basically, he gets killed and he dies in a swamp, and then the swamp becomes him, gives him powers, but turns him into a grotesque creature as a result. And depending on the era and depending on the author that writes them, you're going to get a different thing. So for the teen graphic novel, I'm picking this Alan Moore, which I'd say is the best, like superhero-esque kind of Swamp Thing, but also has a bit of a dark twist. Just because with Alan Moore, he wrote Watchmen, which is another really famous one, and this is an older one, but if you want your classic Swamp Thing fix, this is a really good one for you. It's even on the type of paper that you would get like when you just get the one-shot graphic novels in the comic book store, so if you're looking for more of that kind of look, Alan Moore's Swamp Thing is a really good one. Like here's Green Lantern, just chilling. It's really good stuff. This is available in physical copies here and there, but the bulk of Alan Moore's collection that we have is on Hoopla. And if you haven't used Hoopla for graphic novels, I highly recommend it. They do a really good job of putting graphic novels on there. Personally, that's the only way I read graphic novels. If I have to read them digitally, is on Hoopla, because they do a really good job. The adult one I'm going to bring up a little bit later, but stay tuned for that one. This next one is Blackwood. So Blackwood Almost looks like a black velvet picture in the 70s, where if you put in certain types of light, it just glows really well. It's very pretty, and it's a supernatural fantasy, and it has a murder mystery in it, and it's in a sorcery school. So there's 3 things all in one book. It's really pretty. It's got cool, spooky elements to it. And it's got ghosts and ghouls and all kinds of fun stuff. So if you want something with a pretty neon look and just a really good story, this is a really good one. Blackwood, we only have it on Hoopla, but it is a really good book to try out Hoopla on if you have not tried it out yet. So yeah, definitely give that one a try. That's probably one of my favorite ones I'm sharing today. This next one, this one's going to be, if you've heard of Buffy, if you've watched Buffy, if there are any other 90s kids out there, it was a really fun show. Still one of my favorite shows personally. They actually made a newer graphic novel based on the show loosely a few years ago, and it's actually a really good graphic novel series. And it looks like this. It's Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and it's a lot like the actual plot of the show. They do more of a modern twist on it. So if you want a Buffy the Vampire kind of graphic novel experience to enjoy, or you have someone that's just really into vampires, wants a really strong protagonist of someone just kicking butt and beating up vampires that maybe they don't know about the Buffy show, that's a really good one too. You don't have to have liked the show to like the Buffy the Vampire graphic novel series. It's really good. You should try it out. And that one is also available in both physical form and on Hoopla. Second one I'm going to bring up that's based on, there's a show on it now. Like Buffy the Vampire was a show first and then became a graphic novel. This next one I'm going to bring up was a graphic novel, a very popular one, and then became a very popular show. I do see a comment. Hello, I am good. Thank you for asking. This one right here. Chilling Adventures of Sabrina. It's a cool show. It's an even cooler graphic novel series, in my opinion. Just because the artwork is gorgeous, and it just really dives more into the story and the lore than even the show does. The show does a pretty good job, but it's just so cool. For those of you that are not aware of this one yet, Sabrina's a teenage witch. Nothing like the 90s show. She's a teenage witch. Once she turns 16, she has to make a choice of either going fully into the world of witchcraft or fully going into the human world, and she doesn't really know what to do. She kind of wants to do both. And you get to see the experience of trying to be a teenager, trying to figure out how to be a witch, trying to make sure her soul isn't sold to the devil. You know, all kinds of complicated stuff. And it's in the new Vamped Archie series, too. So if you just like the new revamp of the Archie stuff once it came out and you haven't tried this out yet, this is a really cool one. And the nice thing is there's a lot of it out there. So if you enjoy it, you can just read and read and read and read and read. So it's really good stuff. This next one has an interesting origin story to it. And that is Emily the Strange. Emily the Strange actually started as a mascot. So a lot like, just like an icon that was plastered on skateboards for a little while. And she has books out about her universe, and she has a graphic novel series out about her universe. So with Emily the Strange, 13-year-old girl poofs into a strange town. She doesn't know who she is. All she has is her notebook, and it's just a mystery, but it's a mystery in a very spooky town. It kind of reminds me of a series of unfortunate events and Tim Burton movies at the same time. but with a rocker flair. Also, there's cool cats in it too. So if you like cool cats in graphic novels, this is a really fun one. And I just like the unique art style to it as well. And with Emily the Strange, it's mostly on Hoopla. If you're looking for the novels, you're able to get some copies of it physically, but for the most part, it's on Hoopla. And then the last teen pick I am going to share with you is kind of a silly one. It's cute. I would say it's a cute one. And it's a romance story as well. So if you know someone, or if you're someone that likes spooky elements, but you don't necessarily want to be scared when you're reading it, you just like the spooky creatures, this is a really, really cute one and a good one for you. So this is Princess Decomposia and Count Spatula. So Princess Decomposia, who's this character right here, she's very, very cute. She pretty much runs the underworld. Her dad is really lazy, so she just does everything. And she feels overworked, and she feels underappreciated, and she's feeling very burnt out. So she finally gets some help. She hires Count Spatula, who is this tall fellow right here. And he is a vampire with a sweet tooth, which is actually quite rare in this universe. And he is the head chef. And he actually really helps her out, and a possible romance blooms. Woo! So if you want a cutesy, spooky universe, little romance graphic novel with some silly parts, this is a really good one for you. And that is all of the teen picks I have. So I am about to go into the adult graphic novels. These are also, of course, still really good for teens as well, but these are going to have more adult material, so graphic scenes, gore, all that kinds of stuff. So I will just give you all a moment if you would like to leave for a bit, get everyone all settled. Okay, perfect. So I brought this up a little bit earlier. I'm going to save it for now. And that is another Swamp Thing. So a cool thing about Swamp Thing is there's so many different versions that it's kind of like Batman. There's a Batman for everybody, and there's also a Swamp Thing for everybody. And what's nice about this one, Swamp Thing's Tales from the Bayou, is it's a collection of works. So it's just nice, and it's the most up-to-date Swamp Thing collection right now. Like, a really good example of one of the stories is he has his companion at the time, Briar, who is a witch, and they're trying to go after a pyromaniac called the Charman, who can light anything on fire in command. So there's a little story like that. There's some more spooky ones in this one. And it just has really nice art. And, I just appreciate really nice art. And there are really cool monsters in it. Like, look at that. Doesn't that look menacing and spooky and everything this season is about? So if you just want some Swamp Things, but a little bit more modern of a Swamp Thing, this is a really good one for you. And the artwork is just beautiful. And then this one is available on both physical and on Hoopla as well. So it's really the best format for you, and you can find it. So after Swamp Thing, let's talk about witches. Carroll County, this is available on both physical form and on Hoopla. And this is just a really good witch story. So the main character in this first volume is a resurrected witch. She doesn't know she's a witch initially, but she finds out pretty fast because the entire village that she grew up with, once she hit a certain age, is trying to kill her. So she runs into the woods that's supposed to be cursed, Only the woods does something quite different when she goes in. So if you like spooky witch stories and a mystery all in one and really pretty, but sometimes grisly art, Carroll County is a really cool one. And for getting the most volumes, I would recommend Hoopla for this one, just because some of these can be a little tricky to get in the physical format. But other than that, yeah. Like the ghosts are really cool in this too. Just this is a really pretty one. And I'd say this is the most, like when you think Halloween in October and you want a book that kind of reminds you of the spookiness, Carroll County, I think, is the closest you're going to get to being right on the mark with that. And the nice thing is it's been around for a while, so there's a lot of volumes. So if you want to really get your hands on a nice, long, healthy series, Carroll County is a really good one for you. This next one, I wouldn't say it's really spooky. It's more of a different take on Grim Reapers, but Death Vigil. This one is only available on physical, so we would just need to place a hold on this book to get it. But what happens here is if there are gifted humans and when they die, some of them, after they die, get brought back as these immortal death knights, and they are part of an army of good versus evil. That's a never-ending battle, or so they fear. And it's just a really cool, it reminds me a lot of Hellboy in a lot of ways. But it's just very pretty. It's got some cool hero characters in this. The villain is pretty cool in this too. And the monsters are A++ in this one. Like, isn't that sweet? There's a couple parts that are a little grisly, but it's not too bad. It's just a cool superhero, sometimes anti-hero kind of twist. The artwork is very pretty in it. So if you just want to try out some superhero stuff with some supernatural elements, Death Vigil is a really good one for you. And then this next one, this is actually an older series. They made a movie based on this, and now they've made a graphic novel based on it. So it's been in a lot of different formats, but it's 30 Days of Night. So 30 Days of Night is set in Alaska, and as soon as it hits the mark where there's just 30 days of darkness, because they're so far up north, these strange vampire-like creatures come out to attack the town. So it's a survival story. It reminds me a lot of like a zombie horror kind of book, but because it's vampires, it's got some pretty unique elements in it. And also, the artwork is really cool. They do a really good job with shading and everything like that in this. And just if you like just cool attacking monsters, spooky elements, then it's just a really fun one for you. And this one is just on Hoopla. I think there's a couple copies, but for this one, I would focus on Hoopla to get your hands on it. And then the last one I am going to share with you is brand new, quite pretty. Family Tree. So, Family Tree, there is a family, and the daughter, who is an 8-year-old girl, slowly turns into a tree. So her family treks across America to try to see if they can find a cure. And every day she gets more and more grotesque and less human, so becomes more and more dire. But in the process of trying to find a cure for their daughter, they discover more grisly things, and they discover that this is way deeper than they thought it would be. And it's just very pretty. Like, let's see. And if you haven't read, this is by Jeff Lemire. If you haven't read his stuff before, Highly recommend it. I rarely ever get disappointed by his work. It's just very cool. It's got a family dynamic. It's got supernatural dynamic. It's got really cool creatures in it. Like what I'm doing right now. Seeing if I can show you. Yeah. Look at that. Isn't that beautiful? So this is a really cool one. If you've read Descender and like it, if you've read Sentience, which is also by Jeff Lemire, and enjoyed it, you will probably enjoy Family Tree as well. And right now, we have this just as a physical copy. So if you want to get your hands on it, you can get a hold. But the nice thing is, because this is a new book, it's got that new book smell still. So that's a win-win for my book. So that is all I have to share with you today. I hope you got some good book recommendations. I will list all of the titles and the authors of the books that I brought up today. And if you enjoyed this, I will do this again on November 23rd at 4 p.m. and I will share sci-fi books for both teens and adults. So stay tuned for that, and I hope you have a lovely afternoon.